Welcome to this online presentation in the context of the 10th International Conference on Technology, Knowledge and Society in Madrid. My name is Caroline Roth-Ebner. I'm a media and communication scientist in Austria, and today I'm going to speak about the skills of the Digicom worker. As I showed in my presentation for this conference in 2012, the use of ICTs at work is transforming our working conditions and structures. It is influencing our communications, our relationships, and the relation between private and business spheres. New opportunities arise as well as new challenges, which require special skills of the individuals. These skills will be the main topic of my talk. In the introductory section, I will briefly describe the theoretical context of my presentation, which focuses on the theory of mediatization. In addition, the study mediatization of work, on which my presentation is based, will be introduced to you. The chances and challenges of mediatized work will be discussed in section 2. Afterwards, in the main part, I will explain the skills and competencies that are necessary to meet the challenges. Finally, in the conclusion, I will introduce some further considerations concerning the mediatization of work. The concept of mediatization as a long-time meta-process was introduced by Friedrich Krotz to describe social and cultural changes with regard to media and medial developments and shifting communication practices. Krotz underlines that communication as a symbolic act is essential for human beings. Their communications construct reality, and so do media and what they communicate. Andreas Hepp perceives media in their institutional and technological sense as molding forces of communicative action. This is in fact the core thesis of this presentation: ICTs as the drivers of social cultural change in working contexts. This thesis is expressed by the term mediatized work, which provides the background of the current study. The research presented in this paper focuses on so-called Digicom workers. These are people who use ICTs intensively in their work environment and whose work is shaped by the use of ICTs. By profession, the participants in the study are, for example, managers, software designers, communication consultants, or entrepreneurs. The main questions posed in the study are: First, how does the use of ICTs at work change the workers' perceptions of time and space, and their time and space-related actions? Second, what opportunities and challenges derive from a new dynamic of work, media, time and space? What competencies or strategies do Digicom workers develop to meet those challenges and to seize the opportunities? This presentation focuses particularly on the latter: the Digicom workers' competencies and strategies. To find answers to these questions, a triangulated research strategy was designed. Today I will speak about the results that emerged from 20 qualitative guided interviews conducted with Digicom workers and from visualizations carried out and then verbally commented by the workers after each interview. You will see some examples later on in this presentation. We are now coming to the opportunities and challenges that were revealed by the study. Referring to the aim of the research, these were interpreted in the light of their relation to the focuses of time and space. Thus, the opportunities can be briefly summarized under the following keywords: efficient communication and organization of work, work independently of time and space, and transparency through virtual visibility, for example via team calendars or status managers. The main challenges are, in analogy to the opportunities, the communication and information overflow, the blurring of boundaries between private and professional spheres, and new forms of control, for example monitoring the workers' virtual activities and/or communication. In fact, the question whether a phenomenon is perceived as a challenge or as an opportunity is not easily answered. It differs depending on the context, for example, individual preferences, the worker's position in the company, or concrete situations. Now let us come to the main part of the presentation, the skills and strategies. The following conception of abilities is based on the competencies of the Digicom workers as yielded by the study. At the same time, they provide an ideal typical profile of the skills for current office workers and for future generations. Actually, media and technology literacy can be identified as the most important ability required to handle the complex challenges of ICT use. What is most evident for all of the Digicom workers is their effort to use ICTs efficiently. Thus, they create structures and elaborate practices that help them to organize their media communication in an efficient way. For example, they organize their emails in folder systems and create rules to automatically store the messages in different folders. Moreover, they use digital group calendars to organize their appointments or instant messenger applications to provide fast and low-level communication opportunities for their team communication. Media literacy is the central topic in a visualization drawn by a senior manager after the interview, as his illustrative answer to the question about his media use at work. In his picture, he drew himself as Don Quixote, who is tilting at windmills. The Digicom worker uses this picture as a metaphor. The windmills are the media and the streams of information he has to struggle with all day long. The lens symbolizes his media literacy. This competency enables him to handle his communicative tasks and to produce proper information and communication packages that can easily be delivered to customers and team members, as he declared. At the same time, the picture can also be interpreted through a critical lens. In the original literature, the windmills appear to Don Quixote as giants. Thus, the picture might also symbolize the senior manager's suffering from communication overflow, which he mentioned during the interview. The simultaneous handling of several different communication channels forces him into a state of permanent responsiveness and obstructs concentrated work. Due to the fact that by using ICTs the Digicom workers are able to work independently from time and space, the ability to manage time and space at work is gaining importance. One example is provided by a 33-year-old entrepreneur whose visualization you can see on the slide. In her view, ICTs connect her to other parts of the world. Actually, she lives in the US but runs her company in Europe. She manages it via digital media, for example via email, instant messenger or team software. Despite having installed a successful structure of virtual communication, she flies to Europe every 6 to 8 weeks to take care of her company personally. As the entrepreneur emphasizes, physical presence is unavoidable in the course of managing employees. Exemplary for the successful management of time is the case of a 42-year-old university professor. He has organized his team in such a way that, as a matter of principle, the mornings are free of any appointments. During these periods, the physical and medial accessibility of his team is strictly restricted in order to allow concentrated work on papers, presentation, and so forth. Citation: "The team members just let me work, and so do I, but we all know that we are open for communication in the afternoon." End of citation. That's what the professor emphasized in the interview. Most of the Digicom workers mentioned in the interview that they are permanently available for their companies, either via telephone or through regular email checking. This can be interpreted in the light of the blurring of boundaries between private and professional spheres, and the subjectivation of the workforce. Corresponding to the latter, the study's results disclose that boundary management and accessibility are a matter for each individual to define for themselves. In this regard, the balancing of borders becomes a central competency of Digicom workers. In the context of the paper at hand, boundary management is understood in terms of space and time practices as well as the dissociation from narrowing methods by employers and from neoliberal values. A 25-year-old project manager in the field of communication mentioned in the interview that she would never take home elaborate or complex work. She prefers to stay in the office longer if it is necessary. Actually, she has removed her desk from her apartment. The aim of these arrangements is to keep the private spheres free of work. Other strategies of Digicom workers are not to use or to switch off telephones or computers in their leisure time, or to separate private from business communication channels. For example, to use different email accounts or mobile phones. A central competency in an accelerated working environment, which is strongly connected to the ability of boundary management, is the ability and disposition to decelerate and to recover from excessive labor. The strategies elaborated by the Digicom workers vary from doing sports and going out into the countryside to spending time with family and/or friends. Some of the interviewed people mentioned the abandonment of media as an important step in order to literally be able to turn off once in a while. Yet, giving consideration to the study's results, it has to be emphasized that strategies like boundary management or deceleration very often have the character of wishes, as the interviews disclosed. The Digicom workers hardly succeed in realizing them. They are trapped in a maelstrom of neoliberal values and demands from which it is difficult for them to escape. This aspect is well represented by the visualization of a female Digicom worker who works part-time but is also accessible for business matters after work. This sometimes leads to stress when she is taking care of her small child and, for example, it begins to cry while she is talking on the phone. In her picture you can see her surrounded, or let us better say encircled, by different media: the mobile phone, the landline, the laptop and the internet. Taking into account the rapid societal and technological change, competencies have to be emphasized which are relevant regardless of technological innovations and will be of importance in a future that is hard to predict. The participants of the study stated that answering the questions concerning their media use helped them to reflect upon their work and their everyday practices. Regarding mediatized work, reflection means taking a step back from the technologies in use and from one's common practices, scrutinizing them in relation to their inherent opportunities and challenges, and when indicated, modifying one's own behavior. This competency can be interpreted as cross-section competence in addition to the above-mentioned skills: media and technology competence, management of time and space, and boundary management. It is a prerequisite for the development of strategies and competencies and for strategic acting. To sum up, office work is influenced to a large extent by the use of ICTs. This opens possibilities and establishes barriers. The benefit depends on the user's competencies. Corresponding to the study's action-oriented focus, the competencies and strategies elaborated above are positioned on the operating level of the subjects. This must not be taken to suggest that the challenges of mediatized work are a matter of the individual. Instead, structures and frame conditions are needed that on the one hand enable and support individual solutions, but on the other hand unburden the individual. Representatives of business, unions and policymakers are called upon to determine the transformed conditions of work, for example through new policies of accessibility beyond regular working times or up-to-date privacy policies. Moreover, new educational concepts are required that meet the demands of mediatized working environments, as well as new health concepts, a critical reflection of neoliberal power structures, and strong support of humanitarian values. In relation to the problem of the digital divide, Friedrich Krotz advocates a media literacy of the state and the society, instead of shifting the responsibility to the individuals. This claim can and must be put forward for the challenges of mediatized work. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have further questions or anything to remark, feel free to contact me.